If you enjoy the story, give it a like and feel free to leave a comment. Also, be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon to be the first to hear new cryptid tales. I'm always looking for stories to share, so if you've had your own encounter with the unknown, send me an email at cryptidtalesmel@gmail.com. This is a story of some kind, one could say, an experience of trust and intuition. It was early spring and winter had just faded away into another slumber. The sky was blue with some clouds covering a part of its prowess. There was something in the morning air which was enticing, but one could not exactly tell what it was. Was it the fact that spring was invading nature for another time until summer would appear in its full bloom? Who should know, and who would really care, but some guy who loved to hang out in the woods of Oregon, near the border to the state of Washington. How he loved to enjoy the darkness vanishing into the rays of light, which always were some sign of relief, or maybe not. Who could tell what it really was, but some old chief of the Haida clan, which used to roam the forests which were part of the great hairy man, who had been visiting it for ages. The natives believed in the myths, the legends of the Sasquatch, and actually believed that it was a human species, some kind of old human from ancient yore and lore. The guy, the hero of the story, if one wants to express it in that kind of manner, was a loner, a ranger dreaming of the great wide open, a cowboy who loved nature and its beauty. To him, everything was just a miracle, an expression of art, which always showed a new aspect of itself, an aspect which would prove to him its seeming endless power and magnificence. And this was the reason why Perry, the protagonist of this story, was really hanging out a lot in nature, because he always could discover something new. This day will be another great day, Perry thought whilst wandering through the forest again. The moon was crescent and the trees were illuminated by its rays. Perry could feel the cold of the night, which was definitely waning, but this time it was different. This time there was some presence surrounding him, which he normally didn't feel. The natives said that one could feel the Sasquatch when it walks, and that some of its kind could purvey some kind of coolness, which could be described like a soft chilly wind. This is what Perry could feel while he was thinking about the legends of the natives and the ancient tribe of the hairy people, which were supposedly visiting the forests of this part of Oregon. Perry knew the hiking trails quite well, and never really believed the tales of this ancient tribe, which normal folks would dub the Bigfoot. But now, he really could perceive a presence watching him, following him through the forest. This notion of having the possibility that someone or something was observing his every move was quite frightening to him, because of his frail mind, which had already experienced a lot of query experiences starting with his infancy. It was really amazing that he actually reached the age that he had reached, because he had already had many moments where he wanted to end his life. The hardships of growing up in a home of tears and the death of his wife Meredith had been too much for his weak and tender soul. There was just so much damage and garbage, which from time to time would just engulf his mind with worries and plight. This is also a reason why he had to escape from it all and just be part of a greater experience, untouched from man. To him, this wandering through the forest was or could be described as a kind of therapeutical method to cope with his cumbersome life, a life that he wanted to forget and just leave behind like dust in the wind. Perry could hear the branches of the trees break and the thumping of footsteps, but they were no footsteps of an ordinary animal that he had ever heard. Could this be just the wind whipping up the branches, or maybe a bear lost in the end of the night? Perry thought, ascertaining that it could just not be a Sasquatch, a being considered to be a mere myth. Why should he believe something like this to be true? My mind must be playing tricks on me, Perhaps I am just too jaded and bewildered, he pondered strongly. But then he heard the footsteps again and again. Perry decided to walk faster and wanted to head to a cabin where he could reassess the situation. The cabin was not very far, but he was nervous, not really knowing what was going on. Then he shuddered for a second. A penetrating roar coming from behind penetrated his mind. Perry kept on walking, but then, all of a sudden, a figure of a hairy thing appeared in front of the path. What is this? Is it an animal or something else? Perry thought to himself. The figure watched him and just stood there. Perry was totally startled and froze. Now he was confronted with something that he really could not comprehend. Something that was massive and probably dangerous. Why was it him? What did it want from him? Was it a Bigfoot? So the legends had some truth to them and the natives were not lying? All these questions were streaming through his mind like a storm of unprecedented velocity. This could just not be true. This was not happening. Then the creature came towards him, and he could feel its presence getting stronger and stronger. Then the creature stopped a few feet in front of him. The eyes of the creature had a yellow tinge, and its facial features resembled a human, although it was covered in brownish fur. "What are you looking for?" it asked in a growling tone. It could speak. It really could communicate with him? This was incredible. But what should he say now? What should he do? So Perry decided to answer in a diplomatic way. "I am just wondering. I like to wander in these forests. I mean you no harm. I just love nature and all its beauty. I don't know who or what you are, but I am not looking for trouble." The creature groaned and growled, and then it spoke. "Are you looking for us? Do you want to know us and our ways?" Perry stared at the creature and was totally petrified. What did it mean with the words that it just said? Was it a trick or some sort of hoax? Or did it really want to ask him something? Why should he look for a Bigfoot if he did not believe in them in the first place? The whole concept of looking for them was ludicrous. Or did he unconsciously yearn to see them? Then he remembered that he did believe in them when he was younger, and not so caught up in the world, which denied everything that did not fit its concept, its ideas. Perry answered with a frightened tone. Yes, perhaps I was unconsciously looking for you. Perhaps I wanted to know that you really existed, and that you were not some figment of an old native's imagination." The Bigfoot started to chuckle, and responded in a friendly tone. "So now you are being honest. Now you are telling the truth. Beware, we can sense deceit for a mile. You should open your mind and speak from your heart, where your desires lie. Most people who wander here are full of hate and anger, and that is why we have to protect the forest from them. You must know that we are the keepers of these lands, and we don't like people who treat them with disrespect. We want people to love nature and respect its beauty, and we want them to leave us alone. This is the reason why we avoid humans, because most of them are so immature and hateful." Perry listened to what the Bigfoot had said, and thought of what he could say next, but he was still quite confused. Then he decided to say these words of honesty to the Bigfoot. "Yes, what you are saying is the truth, but I am not like these humans. I mean you no harm, and I really want to respect nature and your people, if you are people, I mean. At least according to the natives you are a kind of people, but I just want to express to you that I do feel a lot of gratitude towards nature and its endless variations. I also respect these forests and your ways, even if they are different to mine." The Bigfoot sighed and went taciturn for a while, and then it said, "I understand. You are being honest, and I respect your thoughts. Let me show you something of our world, and let me show you that we are good and kind people who just, as I mentioned before, want to preserve nature's beauty." After saying these sentences, the Bigfoot backed off and gave him a sign to follow it. Perry hesitated at first, and then he followed it off the path into the forest. The Bigfoot led him through parts of the forest which were quite unknown to him. After following it for about 10 minutes, he could hear the sound of water flowing. Perry thought to himself that they must be near some small creek, which he, by the way, did not know, because he never ventured into that part of the forest. The Bigfoot went on to the creek and stopped there, and then it knelt down and started to mumble something in some language which Perry had never heard in his life. Perry waited behind it and patiently waited until it finished doing whatever it was doing, for he could not exactly tell what it really was doing while mumbling and kneeling down. After it had ceased doing whatever it was doing, it turned towards him and handed him some kind of gift. "Keep this as a souvenir, and let it bless your life with wisdom, care, and love. I must go now, Perry, and perhaps we may meet again someday. Who knows? Maybe the winds and the trees know, because they often know us better than we know ourselves, for we are also not perfect. May the light bless you, Perry, and until next time." After speaking these words, the Bigfoot went away and disappeared into the depths of the forest. Soon Perry could not even hear the slightest sound of its thumping footsteps. This was a scary but amazing experience, which he had never had in his life. Now he was totally changed, and his mind seemed to have been renewed by this action. Perry decided to stay at the creek for a while and looked at the gift, which seemed to be wrapped in some kind of material which he could not recognize. The sound of the water was so comforting to his mind, which was still in quite a haze and very bamboozled. After a while, though, he felt the urge to move on and head back to his car, which he left 5 miles down the path which he had taken. Then he heard a voice speaking to his mind. "Go back to the path which is at the right side of you. It is not very far, just a few 100 yards, so you don't have to worry about losing your way in the forest." Who was this voice, and why did it know where the path was? This question was really intriguing and riveting at the same time, but Perry decided to listen to it. He did what the voice had told him and kept to his right. After a few minutes, he could see the path, which he knew quite well, although he perceived it slightly different this time. Something had changed, or was it him who had changed? As he was walking on the path on the way back to his car, he began to ponder about the things that occurred to him, and he realized that his perception about life and its endless variations had changed in a decisive way. But he was not sure how it really had happened, that change that had taken place in himself. Was it the encounter with the Bigfoot? Was it the magical creek, or was it the presentation from the Bigfoot, which he had tucked into his jacket? He really didn't know, but the new experience, the new self, was a wonder to him and gave him a feeling of true freedom. Now he could feel nature the way he should have perceived it a long time ago, and as he arrived at his car, he could sense some form of peace surrounding him, enshrouding him. He stepped into his car and drove back home to his house, which was 20 miles away, but Joy was now his companion. He could see the first rays of the morning while he was driving, and breathe the fresh air coming from his car window, which he had opened to some degree. After half an hour, he had returned to his house and opened the gates of his front door. He unlocked the door of his house and went inside to his living room, where he sat down on his couch for a while. Amazement and peace encircled him, and he unwrapped the gift. The gift was a shining talisman. Now he finally was free from all his burdens, because he had learned a new way of seeing things, which were honesty and acceptance for everything that was and will be. He smiled and was happy again after a long time of sorrow and grief. This would be a beginning of a new and more conscious life for him, and that is what he actually was yearning for all along. So the tales of the natives were true, and the Bigfoot were keepers of the forest, as he had realized after this encounter which he had. Thankfully, he said to himself, "Thank you for the gift. Now I understand what it really is. Saying this and being changed, he decided to write down his encounter with the Bigfoot and tell the world that they were alive and real, and here to heal, not to destroy or kill. A kind of people who just wanted to live in peace and inspire the ones who were open-minded to do likewise. Perhaps everyone could learn from this experience, he then thought, after writing down his experience with the Bigfoot, and he smiled while enjoying the brightness of this new day, a day filled with gladness and hope for a new life to change things in the world for the better.